possible matchup between Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders or Demetrius Andrade. I think this is a matchup that will give Canelo the toughest challenge, and I'll explain to you why in a couple minutes. But it seems as though Canelo will be next facing um, what's his name, Ivan Yildirim, something like that. Now, I don't particularly like that. I don't think that somebody who's lost their last fight, uh, no matter how close the fight was, lost their last fight, should be getting a shot at the title when they never had a shot at the title. You know what I mean? It sounds a bit fishy. And yes, David Benavidez lost his belt on the scale, but that's all the more reason why he should be the next in line to get the belt. Now, I listened to Mauricio Suleiman, and he was talking about how, because he lost his belt. I mean, it makes no sense to me because he won his last fight and Yildirim lost his last fight. And Yildirim record is not better than Benavidez, and Benavidez was a world champion. If anybody should get a shot at the championship again, should be Benavidez to get back his belt. So, in my personal opinion, just honestly speaking, I know Yildirim probably will go across to Mexico to fight Canelo. In my personal opinion, and they probably they probably fight in February. Okay, but in my personal opinion, I'm surprised that I'm now starting to cough. In my personal opinion, I think Yildirim doesn't deserve that. But from what we heard, Canelo wanted to face Yildirim, and he wants to face him in Mexico. Okay. But be that as it may, I think David Benavidez should be the person that's facing Canelo right now. It should not be Yildirim. Now, here's what we could do as fans, because here's the thing. I'm going to go through a little bit of history with you guys so you guys can see how you fans can make a big difference in how a fight is done. And remember, you're the guys that pay for these fights and whatever. Okay. This is how you fans can get a David Benavidez Canelo Alvarez fight. I know David Benavidez will be facing somebody else, but he could always switch his opponent and face directly Canelo. This is how it can happen. Okay. So, what you have to do as fans is start making a lot of noise now that you want David Benavidez to face Canelo Alvarez, and then make the case that Yildirim has lost his last fight. David Benavidez won his last fight. I don't care what the WBC rankings are. We want David Benavidez versus Canelo because this Yildirim guy is whack. Shouldn't have him facing Canelo. And you just keep on demanding. Let me tell you an incident in history where that happened. So, Floyd Mayweather, after he had beaten Zab Judah, wanted to face Corey Spinks for the 154 title, where Corey Spinks was the IBF #1 super welterweight in the world at the time. Okay, and they set it up. They had their press conferences and everything. The WBC, I'm sorry, it's not the WBC. The IBF, was okay with it and everything. And because Floyd couldn't face Oscar De La Hoya in 2006. So they had everything set up, and they were going forward with that. But the fans were so disgusted that Floyd had not faced the real lineal champion because he'd faced Zab Judah, but he hadn't faced Carlos Baldomir, who had beaten Zab Judah, that they said Floyd Mayweather is not a real champion because Floyd was the IBF champion and Corey Spinks was the IBF champion. He's not the real champion. Zab Judah is not a real champion. He didn't get a real title because Zab Judah lost to Carlos Baldomir, who is the lineal champion. That's the real champion. Floyd needs to face him. The reason why this was very compelling is because Zab Judah just faced Carlos Baldomir and he lost. Okay? He lost his last fight. Okay? But Floyd still faced him. And so they were like, no, you don't get no breaks like that. You're going to face Carlos Baldomir. And the public put so much pressure on Floyd that he canceled the Corey Spinks fight, which Corey Spinks was very disappointed about. He canceled the Corey Spinks fight at 154. And he went and he faced Carlos Baldomir to show that he was a legitimate welterweight champion. Okay? But the fight he really wanted to make was with Corey Spinks, which is another black fighter. Okay? So why this is important is because the case that's happening now is Canelo wants to face Ivan Yildirim, right? He wants to face Yildirim. That doesn't mean he has. That doesn't mean that he will face Yildirim if you guys demand it. The Mexican fans, you start demanding, no, 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 we want to see Mexican versus Mexican. We want to see Benavidez versus Canelo. Benavidez is the real champion. That's Benavidez' belt that you took from him. So face Benavidez, the real champion, and then we can call you a unified champion. This is what you guys got to do. You got to start putting the pressure on Canelo from now. You guys got to keep on putting the pressure on him. Okay? They don't say you don't want Yildirim, and you need to face the real champion, which is David Benavidez. That is what needs to happen from now and all the way through next year. And you guys keep putting pressure on Canelo, and he'll have to face David Benavidez. It's as simple as that. So if you guys want Canelo to face David Benavidez next, it doesn't matter what fight David Benavidez has next. It doesn't matter. David Benavidez will drop that and face Canelo Alvarez. Unless David Benavidez says he doesn't want to fight, which he did not say. He publicly said he wanted Canelo, right? If David Benavidez is a two-time super middleweight champion, two-time. Okay, Yildirim is not even a super middleweight champion. Yildirim does not deserve that fight against Canelo in any way, shape, or form. And by the WBC saying he's a mandatory and that they mandate that fight means absolutely nothing if you, the fans, start demanding that Canelo fight the legitimate champion of that belt, which he did not fight to get the belt. Because he's a paper champion until he faces the legitimate champion of that belt, which is David Benavidez, who happens to be Mexican and who would not have a problem fighting him in Mexico once all things are even and everything is responsibly done. Because Canelo wants to apparently have a fight in Mexico for the Mexican people. He's doing like what Julio Cesar Chavez did: go back to Mexico, fight a cab driver or whatever, and then come back across to the U.S. And my thing is this: Benavidez, once he agrees to fight in Canelo in Mexico, should fight him in Mexico. It'd be great, And so my personal opinion of this thing is, it's up to David Benavidez. I hope he's ready. Now, they always say stay ready, so I hope he's staying ready and he's ready to engage with Canelo and have a great fight, because the fans will demand that fight on behalf of David Benavidez. And you guys in Mexico particularly, if you want to see a top quality, top tier fight, the guys come back to Mexico and they're always having these stay busy fights as if you guys are secondary in your country of Mexico. You're not secondary people. You should get high quality, top tier fights. And this is a top tier fight between two elite fighters. One who is actually the legitimate champion, who lost the championship not based on facing an opponent, but on the scales. And the second guy is a legitimate champion, and he beat the lineal champion of the division, but the belt that he's holding is really the guy who lost his belt on the scales belt. So what really should happen is the guy who lost his belt on the scales, you can't get that belt, and the other guy's he's undefeated and he's still fighting. No. You have to face that guy. So the guy that Canelo should be facing next should be David Benavidez. He's gonna have to face that tough fight. And then after that, he can either fight on Cinco de Mayo, or what he could do is he could face David Benavidez on Cinco de Mayo, okay? After facing Yildirim, he could face David Benavidez on Cinco de Mayo. But whatever happens, he needs to face David Benavidez. He needs to go see the guy who he got the belt from, who he never faced. That's absolutely incontrovertibly, he has to. That's his first. Obligation. You can't be beating a guy, taking the guy's belt, and you never face him, and the guy's in your division. Nope, he's got to face David Benavidez. That's David Benavidez's belt. Yes, it was lost on the scale, but David Benavidez is still unofficially the guy who is the championship of that belt, who's the champion of that belt. So that's the first thing Canelo needs to do. And David Benavidez, he's a two-time world champion. So Canelo needs to deal with David Benavidez. And if you're going to have a fight in Mexico, that's the fight to have. And of course, Canelo will think that it may not be as tough a fight as people think, but he needs to get ready for that fight that fight. And I guess he wants to have another fight at Cinco de Mayo. If he's going to have one on Cinco de Mayo, He should probably he should probably think about that because after the David Benavidez fight, let's say that fight happens in February, right? Which is roughly January, February. It's roughly 8 weeks away, right? He's gonna need a break, in which case you're talking about having another fight in May. March, April, May is only 3 months, and he's gonna need rest. So he's gonna have to rest and then go back he didn't have a taxing fight this fight, so he should be ready to go for the next fight, which would be that could be a pretty steep order. But if he could do 3 fights in a row, that means to say he takes down David Benavidez. This is probably impossible, but nonetheless. And then he faces the winner of Billy Joe Saunders and Demetrius Andrade. I truly believe that would be epic to do it in that short space of time within a space of what 9 months. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous activity, but it's possible, I guess, if he stays active. He's not taking a lot of punishment. He's not going into very difficult fights. I think he could do it, even though I think it's a little bit too close. So what I would have done, I'd stagger it. I'd have one fight early in the year, probably one in the summer, and then one in September. That's how I do it. So maybe he have the Benavidez fight. He may have the Benavidez fight come Cinco de Mayo, and maybe he has the Saunders Andrade fight probably somewhere in September. So maybe that's the way I'd do it. So he has to stay busy. Maybe he has 4 fights a year. Maybe he has to stay busy with Yildirim. Then he has the David Benavidez fight, and then he probably has to stay busy somewhere in between there, and then he has a fight in September. That might make sense. That may be the best way to do it because now I think about it, because you can't go for. I'm telling you, man, the most amount of fights guys really fight when hard fights every year. It's been so for the history of boxing is 2 hard fights for the year, and you could have a stay busy fight in between. So a guy who fights 4 or 5 times a year in present time, or even a guy that fights 10 fights a year, it's not 10 stiff, tough, hard, elite fights every year. It's not. Even, when they talk about the record of, Harry Crabb, when he fought like 18 times, I think it was 19 times in one year or some shit like that. It wasn't straight tough competition back to back. And it definitely wasn't 19 different guys back to back. No, maybe it was a rematch with a guy or whatever. So these are some of the things that a lot of people don't realize. And so instead of having all those fights, where you could be doing your sparring in your gym or whatever, you have 2 really good fights, and then you have 2 stay busy fights in between. If you're gonna fight regularly, that is. So that's the optimal thing, to get the optimal amount of money, to get the biggest possible fights, and to stay active. Because what I hear a lot of boxers, and even OG boxers, and even I'm hearing I'm even hearing OGs out there saying, because boxers don't have enough fights, so they're not doing as much. They're not doing as much as the older fighters used to do. I don't agree with that, but that's their opinion. I mean, you're getting plenty of sparring in between, and I think it's about optimizing the dollar as well as the preparation for fights. Now, I think is so much more, in my opinion, in depth than it used to be. And I think Roy Jones Jr. captured it really well when he said that boxers today are really well conditioned as well. They can outlast another guy and stuff like that. So there's all of that, those factors that I think a lot of OGs don't take into account. Now, with respect to what Dante's Boxing Nation said, because shout out to Dante's Boxing Nation, he was talking as again very negatively about Canelo, and he's like begrudgingly giving him his compliments. And I'm not too sure why the certain people in the LDBC are almost anti Canelo, and I don't understand it. I'll be honest with you, I don't understand it. Um, the guy is nothing but brilliant. He performs in the ring. Dante was talking about, Canelo doesn't have almost the same. It's so weird. to hear these comments coming from the people who were defending Floyd Mayweather. Like, literally, the same allegations that people who hated Floyd Mayweather were making about him, these same people who were defending Floyd Mayweather turn around and make these very same allegations about Canelo. And that's the weird thing about it. Now, the difference is Floyd never ducked anyone. Okay, he never ducked anyone as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they like to bring up Winky Wright, and I say no, the middleweight. And they were trying to make the fight. If Floyd was a super lightweight or a junior welterweight, you know, they're in completely different weight classes. So if the fight didn't work out, you can't say that Floyd ducked Winky Wright. That's ridiculous, right? Winky Wright just came out of the 154-pound division, but he was fighting in middleweight. And then the Corey Spinks thing, we all know why that fell apart, right? Um, you know, then they tried to talk about Paul Williams as if Floyd was ducking Paul Williams. And I'm like, or ducking Miguel Cotto, because those were the two major guys. Shane Mosley was also in the mix. Floyd wanted to get Shane Mosley when Shane Mosley returned to welterweight. He was talking to Shane Mosley's wife, trying to get Shane Mosley in the ring with him. Shane Mosley wouldn't get in the ring with him. So what's he supposed to do? Shane Mosley was ranked number 3 in the world when Floyd retired from boxing. All right. And again, Floyd was trying to get Shane Mosley in the ring. Shane Mosley didn't want to go in the ring with Floyd. What's he supposed to do? You can't make somebody want to fight you. Mosley didn't want to fight him. And uh Paul Williams wanted to fight him. But then Ricky Hatton wanted to fight him at the same time. Mika Cotto wasn't saying anything. So the only other guy that was legitimate that called out Floyd was Paul Williams, and he just beaten Antonio Margarito, who Antonio Margarito also wanted the Floyd fight because Bob Arum was yelling loud since 2006. Then Margarito goes and loses to Paul Williams. Paul Williams jumps up in the fray. Paul Williams wants a piece of Floyd, which if I was a young fighter, I want to have my chance too. I want to have my shot. But guess what? Guess what? Floyd could only face one guy at a time. So after he had beaten Oscar and he was a cash cow, everybody wanted Floyd after that. Just like how everybody right now want Canelo. That money, that dollar sign, Canelo's money, okay? Everybody gonna want Canelo now. And they gonna talk up a storm as if they could do something. Anyways, the very same thing's going on. Anyways, man. So here's Floyd. So Floyd fights Ricky Hatton. There's no way in God's green earth you could tell me that Floyd shouldn't have faced Ricky Hatton. Oh, he was a junior welterweight. No, 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 no. Let's be real. Ricky Hatton went up to welterweight and beat Louis Collazo. Very difficult fighter. Everybody who's faced Louis Collazo when Louis Collazo was in his prime had problems. That's Shane Mosley. Andre Berto had problems with him. Louis Collazo was a problem. Very, very tough southpaw. Okay, skillful. So when Ricky Hatton almost got knocked out in the 12th round against Louis Collazo, Ricky Hatton needed to realize Louis Collazo was no joke. He was a WBA champion for a reason. Okay, he stunned Andre Berto. He stunned Shane Mosley, and those two guys are very strong fighters. So having said that, Ricky Hatton had beaten Louis Collazo to become the WBA champion, and then he went right back down to super welterweight, to junior welterweight. Okay, and the title was vacant. That title was won by, I believe it was Miguel Cotto facing Carlos Quintana. Okay, and he beat Carlos Quintana's tail, who was undefeated, for that title. If Carlos Quintana had beaten Miguel Cotto, Carlos Quintana was a southpaw, Miguel Cotto was an orthodox fighter who really was strong and could go southpaw, and Miguel Cotto was Puerto Rican, and Carlos Quintana was Puerto Rican. So anyway, the point is that that's how Miguel Cotto won the WBA championship. That's why Ricky Hatton was ranked above Miguel Cotto for two reasons. One, he was a champion at super lightweight, and he was a linear champion. And two, the second reason was he was the WBA champion. Just like how he never lost his title in terms of he was stripped of his title, or let me say, he gave up his title. Okay, after fighting at welterweight. Okay, so he never lost. It's just like right now, David Benavidez and Canelo. Canelo is not the true owner of that title. That's a paper championship because David Benavidez. It's not that David Benavidez doesn't want to face Canelo. It's that he lost the title on the scales. It's totally different. So in a way of speaking, in terms of fighting, the champion is David Benavidez. Still, he has precedence over Canelo. Even though Canelo holds his title, he is ranked higher than Canelo in the WBC, or should be, because Canelo has his title. And that's why, in true fashion, if we were talking old school, the guy, just like with Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, right? Muhammad Ali was the true champion. He had never lost. He had been stripped of his championship. So when Muhammad Ali came back and fought Joe Frazier, that is when Joe Frazier's championship, his undisputed championship status, was legitimate. It was the same thing with David Benavidez. David Benavidez, Canelo needs to face David Benavidez to be legitimate WBC champion. If you look at Canelo, what he's been doing, it's the same thing with Floyd. Floyd won an IBF title. That was a paper championship, because how could you have the IBF title and the guy who's supposedly the IBF champion lost to the guy that beat him? So Floyd had to correct that by going and facing Carlos Baldomir, who was the real champion. Canelo's not the real champion, a WBC champion. It's David Benavidez. As much as he got stripped from the scales, he's never lost. So until Canelo faces David Benavidez, he validates his WBC championship. Because remember, that vacant title was offered by the WBC for Canelo, but it leads to a clash with David Benavidez. Now, here's another thing. So in the case of Ricky Hatton was the real resigning champion. For Cotto to take that title, he needed to go and beat Ricky Hatton, which he never did. He never faced Ricky Hatton ever in his career. So the whole point behind it is Floyd faced Ricky Hatton because Ricky Hatton had precedence over Miguel Cotto, because Miguel Cotto actually had Ricky Hatton's championship. And what Ricky Hatton should have done was go and face Miguel Cotto, or Miguel Cotto should have asked Ricky Hatton to come up and face him. They were contemporaries, by the way. And if Cotto had beaten Ricky Hatton, then Cotto would have been the number one guy, and then Floyd would have faced Cotto. Inevitably. Of course, Cotto would have had to call out Floyd, or Floyd would have said, hey Cotto, come on, man, you're the legitimate champ here, the WBA champ. So even though Cotto was ranked by the Ring as the number one contender, that's because they didn't factor in Ricky Hatton. And once Ricky Hatton was in the runnings to face Floyd Mayweather in 2006. It was Ricky Hatton. Floyd was either going to face Ricky Hatton, Tony Margarito, Carlos Baldomir, Corey Spinks, because all these guys had performed very well. That was about it. It was another guy, but I can't remember who it was. Right? Oh, Shane Mosley. Okay? Shane Mosley was also in the running. So those were the guys that Floyd was supposed to face. It ended up that Ricky Hatton ended up being the guy that Floyd faced in 2007. They were really working on that project for a while. Okay, Paul Williams came up, he just kind of popped on the scene, but it was really between those guys I just mentioned. Now, the thing about it is, people, after he beat Ricky Hatton, he just went into retirement because there was still Cotto left, and Williams was there, and he lost his title before Floyd retired from boxing. But the point is, there was Paul Williams there, and it was Cotto. Those were the two guys. Shane Mosley didn't want no piece of Floyd. Okay, so Floyd, it would have been useless for Floyd to face Shane Mosley. Okay, so the only two guys that the people claimed that Floyd ducked, which he didn't duck, was Miguel Cotto and Paul Williams. And Paul Williams went and lost his fight to Carlos Quintana, which is ironically, Cotto had just beaten, or beaten, no, he hadn't just beaten, sorry. Cotto was the welterweight champion for way back, but Cotto had beaten Carlos Quintana. Okay, and then Paul Williams won it back later on in the year. Andre Berto ended up popping up on the scene. He was the guy that got the vacant title that Mayweather, when he retired, left behind. So unless Andre Berto had faced Floyd Mayweather, he was not the legitimate champion, even though everybody was talking about he was the legitimate champion. But that's because Floyd wasn't in the game. He was retired. So there, it's like talking about Sugar Sugar Ray Robinson um, was supposed to face Marty Servo. Marty Servo was the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. But what did Marty Servo do? Marty Servo retired from the sport. And so Sugar Ray Robinson fought for a vacant title against Tommy Bell. Now, do we call Robinson a paper champion? Not really, because Marty Servo retired from boxing. Now, if Marty Servo was still there, then no matter what, if he stripped or whatever, Sugar Ray Robinson would have still had to go see Marty Servo. Hold on a second. Why is here smelling so bad? It just suddenly started smelling really, really, really bad. Is my breath? No. Did I fart? That's so crazy. The whole place is gonna smell bad. It must be in my mouth. I don't know what happened. Yeah, anyway. So do I have the water in the back? Probably have it in the back. Okay, turn off the light. All right. I'm just talking to you guys, So it's the same thing here. In this case, Andre Berto. Oh wow. In here smells really, really bad all of a sudden. That's a horrible smell. Wow. I don't know what happened. Wow. All right. And I don't even know where the. Oh, I'm smelling all kinds of bad smells. All right. Anyway, so yeah. So Marty Servo. Oh, well, yeah. So that's what happened to Andre Berto. So you can't really call him paper champion because even though he didn't face the real champion, which was Floyd Mayweather, unless Floyd Mayweather made himself available, there was nothing he could do about that. But in the case of Canelo, there's something he can do about it. He can. Wow, this must be in my mouth, in my breath. Awful smell. All of a sudden. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, it could be my breath. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Anyway. So in the case of Canelo, there's David Benavidez. So he's a paper champion until he faces David Benavidez. That's the fact of the matter. So I would like to see Canelo face David Benavidez first before he tries to face anybody else, because he has David Benavidez's belt, and therefore, shoo, whew. So therefore he owes. Whoa. I think somebody came come off the carpet or something. Yeah, it's terrible. I don't know. So he owes David Benavidez at least a shot at the title. Wow. Wow. Tremendous bad smell in here. Just suddenly. Almost something up and died in there. Let me check it out. It's terrible. Suddenly. Yeah. He owes David Benavidez. Uh, I believe he owes David Benavidez. He needs to go see David Benavidez. That's my thoughts on it. Things just getting worse and worse. It just, well, it's crazy. So, yeah. Hold on a second. Oh, you know what? Just a super bad smell just suddenly happened. I don't know. Okay. That's the key of it. That's the key of the whole thing. So, why am I giving you all this history and stuff? It's because I like people to know context to things. You know what I mean? Context to stuff. Ooh, my hair is really crazy. And in this case, I might as well comb my hair. I think I have to hit the road anyway. I've just been letting my hair grow. I could cut, but I just said, "Hey, just let it grow. Let's see what happens if you just grow your hair. Pick it out here." So that's what I'm doing. Oh, that hurts. Oh, yeah, David Benavidez, man. So he could get a shot at Canelo. I think that would be cool. I'm not too sure when though. But what's cool is I think Demetrius Andrade he can get to fight Billy Joe Saunders. I think that's a very important fight. I think that fight will determine whether we'll see another face in that division and another and who will be undisputed because those two guys are probably the best in both divisions in 160 and 168. I think those two guys probably the best guys in either division. So if those guys do extremely well, I think we got something else on our hands. You know what I mean? So it's kind of highly dependent on them guys at the end of the day. And it's kind of cool having so much hair on your face. Yeah, the hair gets in your mouth and stuff, but I feel so furry. it's it's really interesting having a furry face. I say it's furry. The hair is not that bad. Once you stay hydrated, it could cut your face if you're not hydrated. It's actually pretty cool having all this hair in my face. Even though it's overlapping into my mouth. I feel like I don't know, I feel like a one of those mountain men. That's a little bit better. It's kind of cool. Not gonna lie. And especially in a society that says no, you need to shave your face and be clean shaven. It's it's a little bit interesting when you decide, nah, I'm not gonna shave anything. I'm just gonna actually let it grow and see what happens. It's pretty interesting. There you go. I just neaten it up a little bit. There you go. It's semi-cultured. It's kind of cool though, cause see, I don't like looking too young. People think I'm a very young guy, and I'm not really. There's a little bit of gray hair on this side. Yeah. So, uh, it's really cool. I'm gonna say that I hope that Canelo faces those guys. I think Andrade versus Billy Joe Saunders is a big fight, and I also think it's a very skilled fight. It's two very skilled fighters. They both have a lot of characteristics which are similar. Oh man, did I fire something here? This is it's terrible. It's still smelling bad. Oh, must be the carpet. It could be the carpet. Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna clean that out just now. Oh, that's just my neighbor coming through. Cool. Yeah. So, ooh, it's still smelling bad. I don't know why it's smelling bad. Anyway. Oh wait a minute. Hold on a second. Let me see. Ooh. Oh, it's really bad in the back here. It seems to be smelling bad from all the way in the back here. Something in the back here is smelling bad. That's what's up. Hey, you guys still getting feed from me. That's kind of cool. Woo! Oh man, that's a horrible smell. I don't know where it's coming from. What if something's decayed in there? Maybe it's a dead animal or something. I should really check it out. Well, this is the back. It's my haven. It's beautiful in the back there. And in a very hot day, ah man, it's great. Great. Yeah, I go out there. I don't know if I'll get feed, but I'm gonna go outside just to show you guys around. In the back there. Woo, man. Woo. Oh, this stuff is high. It looks like it's a carpet. Yeah, that's crazy. Mm. Whoa. What's that? I'm stepping on something. Oh, what the hell? It's wet or something? I don't know. It's puffed up a bit, and it's like elevated right there. That's crazy. Somebody throw water on this stuff? I don't know, but it just started acting up and really giving off a horrible odor. Like a horrible. I'll treat it with some baking soda and some stuff. Yeah, anyway. So what you need in the building. And just talking to you guys a little bit about Canelo. So I don't know why there's a bias against Canelo. I do not know why certain people. And it doesn't smell so bad. Yeah, it's the carpets. It's the carpet. Yeah, they're acting up. So I gotta treat them. Yeah, I don't know why people are going in on Canelo like that because I don't think it's deserved, especially when you look at his competition. The only ones that you could say, we come and you think about Canelo is he faces one tough fight and then sometimes he has one easy fight in between. If you look at his history, so he's like when he stepped up his competition, he faced Austin Trout, faced Floyd Mayweather the same year. And after that, he had an easy fight with Angulo. And then I think he had the Air fight, and then he had the James Kirkland fight. So he had a tactical fight and then an action-packed fight. And then he had Miga Cotto, I think it is, after Kirkland. Or was it Khan? No, Miga Cotto, and then he had Khan after. And then he had a fight against a world champion, which was Liam Smith. It was an alright fight. Again, he was just making a point. He was probably wanted to face Gennady Golovkin. Well, he didn't want to face it. He was like, "Nah, man. If I'm gonna face Golovkin, you're gonna have to face me at the catchweight." And Golovkin was like, "Hell no." So he ended up facing Liam Smith, and he still didn't face Golovkin. He went on to face, I think it was Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Right, much bigger guy. And then he faced Golovkin, and he faced him twice. And then he faced Rocky Fielding, right? Very much an easy fight or an easier fight. Fielding being a bigger guy, so the only thing really that was a factor in that fight was weight. And after Rocky Fielding, he went on to face Daniel Jacobs, which was a good fight. And then he faced Sergey Kovalev, which is another good fight. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be a shit fight, and it turned out to be a good fight. And then after he faced Sergey Kovalev, he faced Callum Smith. Again, another good fight. Right? These are ranked guys. They're not Rocky Fieldings. There's not a newly formed champion like Liam Smith. It's not a. James Kirkland was the name, but James Kirkland hadn't fought in a long time. It wasn't a James Kirkland. It wasn't even an Alfredo Angulo. Those are the fights that I think it kind of like a stay busy fight. Angulo had performed great against Erislandy Lara, right? He's coming off, I think, the Erislandy Lara loss, something like that. So that was a credible win because Angulo he knocked down Lara twice. And after the Angulo, I think he faced Lara right after. It was crazy. And then faced James Kirkland. James Kirkland tried to represent himself and stuff, but Kirkland wasn't ready for that. So when you look at his fights, everybody's talking about, well, when you look at his track record, it's the best track record out there. Okay, think about it this way. Jamal Charlo, right? They're going in on Canelo. Oh, he didn't fight. He don't fight young fighters and blah 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 and blah 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 blah. They're going. But when you look at Jamal Charlo's resume though, whether it's at 160 or at 154, there's a lot of stay busy fights in there. A lot of stay busy fights, right? And then if you look at Demetrius Andrade's resume, I mean he is right. He is fighting ranked contenders, but you know, well they'll say, well, Andrade and Charlo don't have the opportunities. That's some baloney. Okay, Charlo could have faced Derek Franchenko much earlier. Um, Charlo could have faced at 154. He could have faced Jarrett Hurd. You know, I was looking forward to something like that. So I mean, it's not quite floating water because Jamal Charlo didn't unify at all at 154. Okay, and he's still yet to unify. He had an opportunity to face Demetrius Andrade, didn't take it. So I'm saying that here we are talking about these guys putting Canelo on this whole other plateau of standard because he didn't face This is the real reason. See, all this ducking stuff that they talk about, it's the same thing with Floyd. Oh, Floyd, he ducked this guy, he ducked that guy, and he ducked this guy. And really and truly, it's about Pacquiao. But Floyd couldn't make the Pacquiao fight. He tried, but he couldn't make the Pacquiao fight at the time when people wanted it. That's the ultimate finish. All this ducking crap that they talk about in Floyd as a cherry picker comes from he didn't face Pacquiao. All this Canelo, oh, he don't face, he didn't face this, the LDBC's kicking at you guys, some people in the LDBC, is because they want Canelo to face Charlo. They want Canelo to face Andrade, some of them. Some of them don't want Canelo. They just want him to face Charlo and Benavidez and Caleb Smith, all the PBC fighters. That's all this politics is about. And it's baloney. And some other people would counter and say, well, who do these guys face? Who is Jamal Charlo faced? You see Demetrius Andrade slowly starting to tell the truth. He's saying, here we are trying to get the Canelo sweepstakes, but none of us want to really face somebody. And he's right. Billy Joe Saunders wants to face Canelo. At least he faced some people. He faced Chris Eubank Jr. and he faced Andy Lee. Right? I'm not going to include Martinez. I'm not going to include Martinez. Okay, because is it Martinez? No, it was Martin Murray. I'm not going to include Martin Murray. You know why? Martin Murray was done. But hey, if you want to include Martin Murray, you can do that. He was once a ranked contender, right? Once upon a time. Actually, he's still a contender because he fought for Billy Joe Saunders' WBO title. But when you think about what I'm saying, bottom line, Billy Joe Saunders hasn't faced the level of competition Canelo has faced. He's got skills. Boy got skills. Nobody's saying no. Oh, he also faced David Lemieux. I almost forgot that. Boy got skills, but at the end of the day, he's probably the most qualified to face Canelo. Let's see. Jamal Charlo. He's got J-Rock, Austin Trout, Varnes Martirosyan. Who else does he have? He just fought Derek Franchenko. That's a good that guy should have been world champion. But who else does he have, really? You see what I'm saying? That's 4 names. Right? Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade has Varnes Martirosyan, Another guy who faced Danny Jacobs. Who else does he have? You see what I'm saying? So these guys got to get some people on their resume, man. Callum Smith had George Groves, and who else did he have? See what I'm saying? So it's easy for people to spin the rhetoric if Canelo beats these guys and say, well, the 168 division is not very deep. Oh, yeah, Jamal Charlo and David Benavidez and Demetrius Andrade. But who did they face? Right? So that's why it's very important to address the detractors by saying, well, Demetrius Andrade faced Billy Joe Saunders. Let's say Billy Joe Saunders wins. Billy Joe Saunders beat Demetrius Andrade. That's a guy that everybody was ducking. Or Demetrius Andrade faced Billy Joe Saunders, very skilled southpaw boxer, and beat him. You see what I'm saying? So that if Canelo faces those guys, they have some sort of experience. Because listen, they have very little experience at the top level facing other world champions. Neither Demetrius Andrade nor Jamal Charlo has faced a current world champion in their respective divisions twice. It's never happened. Canelo's been constantly facing current world champions, people with championship mentality, and undefeated ones as well. So that's the level of competition that these guys need to have. And they're shortchanging themselves by playing politics and trying to cash out on Canelo. Because you need experience. The only way you learn in boxing is by fighting. So what Billy Joe Saunders and Demetrius Andrade is about to do, which is worth their while as well, is face each other. And I think that's a very good thing for both of them because it increases their chances of beating Canelo when they do face him, because they at least have had one experience of facing an undefeated world champion. Canelo's been down that road a couple times. But they haven't done that. Right? We're talking boxing here. If you notice, I'm talking boxing. I'm not interested in politics. I'm not interested in black and white and all that bullshit. We must face the reality, must face the facts. Canelo is an extremely experienced champion. He's not just a guy who won a couple fights, defended a couple fights, and that's it. He has unified 3 times in 3 different divisions, which means he has faced champions in each of those 3 divisions. And he's done it multiple times. He faced Miga Cotto, a very experienced champion. He faced Gennady Golovkin, the man of the middleweight division. He's faced Erislandy Lara, very experienced champion. He's faced Floyd Mayweather, pound for pound the best ever. He's faced Austin Trout, undefeated at his peak, southpaw slick champion. Okay, he's been facing champions nonstop. He went up in weight, 175, faced Sergey Kovalev, WBO champion, for the tough battle against the young gun. Battle tested. So when it comes to Canelo, you got to understand he's got extreme confidence that he can handle any style and beat anyone out there. John Roland Rene says, I think Canelo got a gift decision against Lara. You're entitled to your opinion. But that doesn't change the fact that he has a lot of championship experience against actual champions. That's the difference. That's the difference between him and, say, for example, a Charlo or an Andrade or a Benavidez or a Saunders. He's got tremendous difference in, and do understand, Erislandy Lara had been a contender multiple times. Erislandy Lara had been at the championship level multiple times before Canelo even was this name. Erislandy Lara was fighting. He fought Paul Williams, right? He fought Winky Wright, I believe it was. It wasn't Winky Wright. I think I'm mixing it up. That's Paul Williams fought Winky. But he fought for the title a couple times, right? Came up short, but he finally won the title. So when we're talking about Erislandy, he had a lot more experience than Canelo at that point in time. Okay, and Canelo had never seen a style like Erislandy Lara's style. When he fought Floyd didn't fight Canelo like how Erislandy Lara fought Canelo. They're two different styles. Arislandi Lara is a stick and move fighter purely. Okay, at least the style that he employed on Canelo. He can sit down in the pocket and can fight you as well. And we saw it against what's his name, Jared Hurd. Okay, he can also fight you in the pocket, but at mid range, as we saw against Austin Trout. Okay, so you can circle you. Arizona has different game plans, but against Canelo, he chose to use his feet a lot, and he used the entirety of the ring, and he moved around the ring. Okay, and do understand, Canelo at that point in time hadn't been dealing with something like that, so there was a learning experience for him. He said, "You know what, Arizona, no problem. I'm gonna go fight you. You want to fight me? Okay, fine." So at that point in time, Canelo doesn't know how to handle that. As we see now, he knows how to handle that quite well. All right. So it was a learning experience for him. And this is the thing I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that Canelo is definitely going to beat a Billy Joe Saunders or a Demetrius Andrade. What I'm saying, though, is the learning curve will be so much steeper if they don't face each other, if they don't face stiff competition going into that fight, because there's going to be a lot of things they're going to see from Canelo that they never seen before. And they'll have to adjust to and pull the tools out of their tool bag to deal with. And they have a lot of tools in their tool bag, but which tool to pull at which appropriate time is very important in fights like that. You see what I'm saying? It's not just about being a skilled fighter. It's about being a fighter that knows what appropriate skill or what appropriate psychological game. That's the word I'm trying to use, but I don't know how to say it properly. What appropriate smart thing to do to make your opponent move a certain way. Because a lot of them think that they can get Canelo to do certain things, not understanding when they face him how he does certain things to make them do certain things that prevents them from doing the thing they want to do to get him to do what they want him to do. I know that's a roundabout way of saying it, but I think it may make sense to you what I'm saying. Because Canelo does a lot of subtle things in there that takes away the attributes or the skills of particularly jabbers. All right, I've been talking about this since 2012. How about the gift that Canelo, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, they have to be able to neutralize a person's jab. Nobody seems to be listening, and finally people are starting to get the memo. Canelo is an expert at disarming your jab. And when you're a counterpuncher, like Marquez or like Floyd or like Canelo or like even Pacquiao. Pacquiao is actually a counterpuncher, which is a strange thing to say, but he is. Sean Porter is a counterpuncher, okay? People don't know that, but when you think about it, Sean Porter is aggressive counterpuncher. He will throw 3, 4, 5, 6 punch combinations after slipping or rolling under a shot. He comes at you very aggressively after he's gotten you to throw your offense. Okay, so all these guys, they know how to get around a jab, and a lot of people say, "Well, we throw a strong, stiff jab." All that because Charlo is very good at throwing strong, stiff jabs, and it doesn't matter. He'll keep the same strong, stiff jab going. The problem that Charlo doesn't have is, see, there's an art to jabbing. And the guys I suggest people go check out Vladimir Klitschko. Go check out Lennox Lewis. Check out guys like Larry Holmes. Okay, check those guys out because there's an art to jabbing. It's not just a strong, powerful jab. Because sometimes guys throw at the same pace, the same tempo, the same speed. They don't vary the jab. They don't even vary the angle of the jab. Okay, they're different jabs for different things. Coach Eric Bradley. Let me mention this. I always mention him, and I will always mention him because he's the real deal. Coach Eric Bradley, Master Boxing, the Fight Doctor. He breaks it down really, really well. Okay, he breaks it down. You have to understand, boxing is a martial art. I'm going to quote Coach Eric Bradley, so you guys will understand. Guillermo Rigondeaux has a great jab, no doubt about it. You know, but no, actually, no. He has a effective jab. He uses what we call touch jabs or pouring jabs to set up his lead left. His lead left is the powerful hand, so he doesn't have a powerful jab per se, but he has a pouring jab in which he could hook off the jab, and set up his powerful left hand. Right? Okay. So he's trying to pick the gloves, pick the space to get the left in there. All right, but anyway, back to what I was saying. Coach Eric Bradley, um, Coach Eric Bradley, he's the fight doctor, right? And let me just make this disclaimer. I don't really know that much about boxing. When you hear Coach Eric Bradley break it down, you realize, oh my God, there's a lot to this game. Okay, I'm just talking the basics of boxing right now, what I as a fan see and what I've learned and what I try to apply as well. But when I'm talking about boxing in its detail, oh my God, it's a whole different ball game. It's not something you can just pick up overnight and do. Okay, so anyway, back to what I was saying. And that's why I have so much appreciation for all the boxers out there. And I really don't try to, any boxer that's at the elite level, at the highest level, you have to give them respect. Period. It doesn't matter if they're duck fighters or whatever. You have to give them respect because the dedication and commitment to honing their crafts and becoming very good at it, my friend, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to do it. All right, a lot of sacrifice. And I just tried, for a couple months to try and run some kind of routine. And I'm telling you, bro, it takes a lot out of you, but it's great. It really, you feel very alive when you do it right. I'm 175 pounds now, and it's not the same. Even now I have a little stomach problem going on. And I didn't have any stomach problems, nothing. I was flying, I was moving really well. I was light on my feet. It's just great. It's great when you start training, but the training is very taxing. It's intense. Shout out to Troy Killertainment, Troy King. Shout out to Troy King. Okay, so let me get back to it. So, yeah. So, jabbing. So with Canelo, Coach Eric Bradley broke it down like this, right? Coach Eric Bradley said that what Canelo used initially on Callum Smith was a jab that was crippling. Okay. And it's called a bazooka jab. You guys, if you guys know anything, I don't know how long you guys been watching boxing, but there was a guy named Ike Corte. He used to call him the bazooka because he had the bazooka jab. The bazooka jab, let me break it down for you guys. So there are different jabs for different things. The power jab is a lot faster than the bazooka jab. The bazooka jab is sort of like a jab to the pit. It's sort of like that as well. Okay. But the difference is the bazooka jab is sent straight down the center line, what they call, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but the anchor line or something like that. And it's not easy for me to describe it without showing you it. But suffice it to say, if you're a fighter and you're leaning forward at about 45 degrees, you are in the strongest stance you could possibly be uh, when boxing. So when you lean in forward, you're actually in a very powerful stance. The bazooka jab, when you jab straight into the chest of a guy with a bazooka jab, what you're actually doing is you're going to disrupt that stance, and therefore you're going to weaken the stance of the opponent, and you're also going to weaken them because you weaken them all the way down their spine, all the muscles that hold everything together. And so that's why gradually, as the fight went on, because Canelo was jabbing to Callum Smith's chest, you saw that Callum Smith seemed to be losing more and more power in his shots. And so Canelo was definitely directing certain shots to specific areas on Callum's body. He was trying to take away his jabbing arm by punishing it. He was weakening Callum Smith and his stance by literally striking at this particular area on his body, which would cause him to be weakened. So it was some very specific stuff going on in there. Now that's not stuff that guys like Jamal Charlo and guys like Billy Joe Saunders are picking up because they don't know boxing like that. Coach Eric Bradley knows boxing like that because he's been training his fighters specific sorts of ways to target these specific things. And this is something actually that's no more in MMA and jiu-jitsu and these kinds of things. That's why I said boxing is a martial art. So that you have to understand what Canelo was learning so much different things that he's subtly doing in that ring. And Coach Eric Bradley just went into the 5 areas of, um, the 5 vicious areas of Canelo's game, and showing you how there's levels to the sport of boxing. And guys like Billy Joe Saunders and Demetrius Andrade haven't reached those levels because, one, they haven't had to go through the test to get them to those levels. You see? And that's why competition, the level of competition is important, so that you can pass certain tests, you can apply certain things. If you're not being challenged in such a way that you're able to apply certain things, then you won't apply them, and therefore they are sort of there, but they're dormant in you. They have to be awakened. And to have to do all those things in one fight where a guy is pulling all these stoppers and making you have to pull all these stoppers from yourself, and this person's in their prime too, he's actually younger than you are. Because he's gotten all those opportunities to develop his game, and he's constantly eager to develop his game, it's very hard to beat a person like that. It just is. And I'm not trying again to be, to applaud or laud Canelo. I'm telling you guys, this guy's the real deal. He's really the real deal. And it's going to be very, very difficult to beat him. And I'm giving you reasons why. I'm not trying to, just tell you something but based on emotion or something. This is not something emotional right now. This is something about the game that this guy brings to the table is different to what those other fighters had. And the reason was because he faced a lot of veteran fighters and had to make adjustments, and some of them he failed in, and other things he succeeded in doing. And Coach Eric Bradley really breaks it down. If you guys need to check out his video, just go to Master Boxing on YouTube and he will see him break it down. And there are literal drills and stuff that he will tell you about to develop those kinds of games. But it does take years and years and years to do that. And then he talks about the difference between skills and skill sets. He talks about the difference between what we call IQ. Okay, and he talks about the difference between what's called wrinkles. There are wrinkles, to the game. So he discriminates between all these different things, so you guys can have a better understanding of it. Again, Coach Eric Bradley is literally a coach who coaches the Olympic teams, and he also coaches pro athletes, and he also coaches a lot of amateurs. And this man is a third generation. Yeah, it's toxic if you don't train. For real, he really goes into the sport of boxing. So I'm just saying, if you guys really want to see guys, because these are the guys I like to talk to, or these are the guys I like to attend. So I go to channels like Coach Barry Robinson. He's another coach who again is very in depth into the boxing thing, but he's not as, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be honest with you, he gets results as well. But he's not as versed as Coach Eric Bradley is. Coach Eric Bradley is extremely thorough and extremely versed, and you can see his pedigree, and he's worked with a lot of renowned coaches, as well as his whole family's been immersed in boxing for 3 generations. So there's a lot of information, and he packages it in a package that literally you can do. But the thing about it is the package doesn't happen overnight. This takes years to develop. So it's not just, you can start from the basics and work your way up as a student. Now, he basically gives packages to coaches to coach now. But the point is, Coach Eric Bradley himself was a boxer. Okay. So it's not like, this guy, he really knows his stuff. The other guy I know, And when I refer you to these channels, you really should check them out. Precise Striking. Precise Striking is an excellent channel. Again, from a pro boxer. Again, from a very again, these guys break down um, boxing into a systematic sort of way. So it's very much a very systematic way of looking at things, understanding different aspects of things. Okay, this guy is not just he's not just a fly by night kind of dude. Okay, these guys know what they're talking about. Another channel that you need to check out if you guys haven't checked him out is Marvin Cook. Marvin Cook is again another. You will not be able. Some of this information Marvin Cook gives you, you know, the guys in boxing know, but fans don't know this stuff. Okay, so check out Marvin Cook. Check out Precise Striking. Check out Master Boxing. Just Google them in. Not Google them in. Just YouTube them in. Right, and you will find some of the best stuff you'll ever hear concerning boxing. Okay, for a fan. And then if you're somebody who's actually training, you're actually an athlete, you're actually a boxer, those channels they will never steer you wrong. Now, Coach Anthony's another channel that I check out. He was the trainer for Tevin Farmer. Coach Anthony is a good trainer, um, but I got to be honest with you, and he's a great trainer. Don't get me wrong, but he basically goes through the basics with you. The other gentleman I would like to tell you guys about, because it's I could just go on, but the trainer for Roy Jones Jr. when he faced Mike Tyson, which is Tom. Ooh, I forgot his surname. But anyway, you don't have to know his name. Just go to World Class Boxing. That's the channel, and he teaches you stuff. He's been the trainer of Paul Spadafora, who's excellent, very skilled boxer, southpaw. And he's another person. I forgot what his surname is, but it's Tom something. I can't remember. I don't know why I forget his last name right now. But he's another excellent trainer, and you guys should check out his videos. Now, let me just make a disclaimer, though. As good as these guys are, do understand you need to have a personal coach or personal trainer. So what you can do is you can have your personal coach or personal trainer who you have get in touch with these guys by buying, maybe, or you buy it for them, whatever, the set of instructions, right, for training and coaching, because it's going to help them, even though they may have their own style of doing things or whatever. um, and you also should be training with whoever your coach or trainer is. Hopefully they're good and they're teaching you the right things, because there's a lot of stuff that you can get wrong, that's wrong for you. But at a certain point in time, because Coach Eric Bradley was talking about this, when you have a certain degree of mastery, there's no such thing as doing something wrong. The biomechanics for you will work for you, and therefore it's not wrong what you're seeing. Even though it looks technically wrong, it is not. And that's when you get to the level of wrinkles. When you get to the level of wrinkles and you have the all-round mastery of your art, some people say, well, Mayweather doesn't turn over his punches. And other people say, man, that looked like a slapping shot by Sugar Ray Robinson. Or, oh my gosh, because I even thought about it. When I look at the great Salvador Sanchez, sometimes he throw that right hand and it looked like he threw it this way. What the hell just happened? That was weird as hell. I have no idea where that happened. Yeah, the great Salvador Sanchez. Sometimes, you see this part of his hand first before he throws the punch down. But that's his way of arcing the punch and getting the maximum power out of it. So, and I can show you the clips of what I'm talking about, because wow, that was weird. That happened twice. So that means somebody's probably trying to manipulate